Yo, what is up my friends? Welcome to another episode of Dostcast. मेरा नाम है विनम्र कसाना. अगर आप इस YouTube चैनल पे पहली बार आए हैं, consider subscribing because we release new episodes every Tuesday and Friday at 12 PM Indian Standard Time. अगर आप इस podcast को किसी ऑडियो प्लेटफॉर्म पे सुन रहे हैं, make sure you give us 5 सितारे क्योंकि हमें भारत में सबसे निराले. आज के हमारे podcast गेस्ट का नाम है वैभव पुरांदरे, जो एक डेप्यूटी रेजिडेंट एडिटर हैं टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया. Vaibhav has written about 5 books. Some of them include a book on Sachin Tendulkar, a book on the Shiv Sena, a book on Bal Thackeray, a book on Savarkar, a book on Hitler in India, and finally his new book Shivaji, India's Great Warrior King. मतलब इससे पहले as a non-Marathi, as a non-Maharashtrian, I had only heard tales of छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज's bravery. लेकिन वैभव उन पे एक्सपर्ट हैं जिन्होंने कम से कम 7 साल इस किताब को लिखने में लगा दिए. ऐसे ऐसे इंसाइट्स आपको शिवाजी की ज़िंदगी में मिलेंगे जो शायद आपने पहले कभी नहीं सुने होंगे. बियॉन्ड जस्ट बीइंग अ ब्रेव मराठा, ही वाज आल्सो स्किल्ड मिलिट्री स्ट्रैटेजिस्ट, समवन हु अंडरस्टूड कि एक एम्पायर कैसे बनाना है, एंड समवन हु वाज ऑल अबाउट असर्टिंग हिज ओन आइडेंटिटी. कमाल कॉन्वर्सेशन. द एपिसोड विद वैभव पुरांदरे, ऑथर ऑफ शिवाजी, इंडियाज ग्रेट वॉरियर किंग, बिगिंस इन 3, 2, 1. Vaibhav, welcome to Dostcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you, Vinamre.
From wherever you've come from. After many months, we've decided to do this. Your new book, Shivaji, is out. Super excited because I've had the privilege of reading it for the last, मतलब 2 हफ्तों से पढ़े ही जा रहा हूँ. Just glancing through it. सबसे पहले इस conversation को ना contextualize करने के लिए, because number one, I am not a Maharashtra native, neither am I Marathi, but शिवाजी के ब्रेवरी के किस्से या हिस्ट्री की बुक्स में उनका मेंशन मैंने भी सुना है. ठीक है, तो if we can ground this figure in some kind of geography, some kind of time period, and some key contributions that set him apart from, say, other freedom fighters, other revolutionaries, and why is he so important to us? If we can start from that.
Sure, Vinamre. Thank you for inviting me to your show. I've heard it's extremely popular. So happy to be here. To talk about my book and to answer the first question you've asked, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj is a unique figure in the history of early modern India. अब ये मैं पोस्ट मिडीवल ईरा की बात कर रहा हूँ और अर्ली मॉडर्न इंडिया की बात कर रहा हूँ. एंड वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द 17th century हियर. मुग़ल साम्राज्य जो भारत का है, इट इज़ एट द हाइट ऑफ इट्स ग्लोरी. And in Shivaji's teenage years, when Shivaji is a teenager, he is born in the year 1630. And by the time he grows up, Aurangzeb, who starts out as the governor of the Deccan under his father, who is at that time the Mughal emperor, he is eventually working his way towards becoming the Mughal emperor himself. And he becomes the Mughal emperor, and under Aurangzeb's leadership, the Mughal empire's geographical reach is the greatest ever. तो अफगानिस्तान के पार्ट्स भी मुग़ल एम्पायर साम्राज्य के भाग हैं. दिल्ली है, आगरा तो है ही, ये सब महत्वपूर्ण कैपिटल्स हैं. एंड इट गोज़ ऑल द वे टू बंगाल, एंड ही इज़ नॉकिंग एट द डोर्स ऑफ द डेक्कन. इनफैक्ट अकबर के टाइम से मुग़लों को ये बहुत बड़ी इच्छा थी कि दे शुड इन्वेड द डेक्कन एंड कॉन्कर द डेक्कन. और डेक्कन में जिसे हम हिंदी में दक्खन कहते हैं, बाय डेक्कन हियर ब्रॉडली आई मीन द सदर्न पार्ट्स ऑफ इंडिया. दक्खन में कई सारे सल्तनतें थी यहाँ पे उस वक्त. वो मोस्टली इस्लामिक सल्तनतें थी. निज़ाम शाही अहमदनगर की थी, बीजापुर की आदिल शाही थी, गोलकोंडा की कुतुब शाही थी. तो ये सब राज्य यहाँ राज कर रहे थे. और शिवाजी महाराज के जो पिता थे, शहाजी राजे भोसले, उन्होंने इन सब राज्यों के साथ एक मिलिट्री जनरल के रूप में काम किया. और बहुत ही शहाजी राजे भोसले ने, और वो बहुत ही बेहतरीन मिलिट्री जनरल थे, बहुत ही सक्सेसफुल मिलिट्री जनरल थे. निज़ाम शाही पे जब बड़ा हमला हुआ मुग़लों से, और मुग़लों की तरफ से और आदिल शाही की तरफ से, तब निज़ाम शाही stayed alive only because of the bravery of Shahaji Raje Bhosle, that is Shahaji Maharaj.
Right.
That is Shivaji Raje's father. But he could prop it up to a point, and 1636 में निज़ाम शाही सल्तनत का अंत हुआ, जिसके बाद शाहजी राजे भोसले ने बीजापुर का सैन्य ज्वाइन किया और वहाँ पे वो मिलिट्री जनरल
Sorry, just to interrupt, Bijapur का mention बार-बार होता है किताब के अंदर. What is the significance? Like, is Bijapur a central part of Maharashtra right now? Is it significant to the overall socio-economic, or like is it geopolitically relevant right now? Because it's mentioned a lot of times in the book.
Bijapur was an extremely important political center in the 17th century.
Okay.
During Shivaji's life and times. It is no longer as politically important or even half as politically important as it used to be at that time.
Okay.
Bijapur was the capital of the Adil Shahi kingdom. और निज़ाम शाही का राज खत्म होने के बाद the Adil Shahi of Bijapur was the most important and the most powerful kingdom in the Deccan.
Okay.
तो अगर मुगलों को अपना राज साउथ में एस्टेब्लिश करना है तो बीजापुर को हराना उनके लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. तो आप जो सेटिंग की बात कर रहे हैं ना 17th सेंचुरी की सेटिंग, तो ये सेटिंग है. औरंगजेब इज सून इमर्जिंग एज अ चैलेंजर टू हिज ओन फादर टू टेक ओवर द मुगल क्राउन. बीजापुर इज़ द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट डेक्कन पावर. उसके बाद गोलकोंडा की कुतुबशाही है. निज़ाम शाही हैज़ ऑलरेडी बीन वाइप्ड आउट एंड द मुगल्स एंड बीजापुर टुगेदर दे हैव डिवाइडेड द निज़ाम शाही स्टेट between themselves. Mughals have taken one half, the top half, and Bijapur has taken the second half, the southern half. And इस सिचुएशन में शिवाजी महाराज का जन्म होता है 1630 में, और वो देखते हैं कि उनके पिताजी बीजापुर के लिए, निज़ाम शाही के लिए इनिशियली अप टू 1636
जागीरदार होते हैं ना.
हाँ, जागीरदार होते हैं. और 1636-37 में as soon as he joins Bijapur, in fact, शाहजी राजे भोसले is sent to Bangalore, क्योंकि बैंगलोर ये उनको जागीर के रूप में आदिल शाही राज्य उनको दे देता है कि ये बैंगलोर आपकी जागीर है, उसे आप संभालिए. यस, नॉट जस्ट बैंगलोर. बैंगलोर टुडे इज एन इम्पॉर्टेंट सिटी, बट बैंगलोर एज द सेंटर ऑफ हिज जागीर एंड ऑल द पार्ट्स अराउंड बैंगलोर. सो मेनी पार्ट्स इन कर्नाटका in the 17th century were controlled directly by Shivaji Maharaj's father,
right.
Shahaji Raje Bhosle. It is a fact that many Indians in the 21st century do not know. तो ये एक जोग्राफिकल सेटिंग है. और जो हिंदू राजा है साउथ में, उनको तो न्यूट्रलाइज कर दिया है पूरी तरह से पहले से ही इस्लामिक सल्तनतों ने. और जो नॉमिनल राजा बचे कुचे हैं फार डाउन इन द साउथ, वो तो नॉमिनल है. उनके ऊपर भी द आदिल शाही एंड कुतुब शाही, दे होल्ड देयर सुप्रीमेसी ओवर दैट.
राइट.
सो नाउ द मेन फाइट इज बिटवीन बीजापुर एंड द मुगल्स फॉर कंट्रोल ऑफ Deccan and of all of southern India.
Empire versus rebels, basically.
Correct. Empire versus the Adil Shahi kingdom.
Okay.
One sultanate versus one empire.
Okay.
It's like that. तो उसमें जब शिवाजी महाराज अपना बचपन बिताते हैं, his father gives Pune as the Jagir to Shivaji to administer.
At a very young age? This is in his teens?
This is when he is 12 years old.
Yeah.
Actually, when he's 6 years old, and when Shahaji Raje goes to Bangalore, Shahaji Raje appoints an administrator for his Pune Jagir. And Shivaji spends a lot of his time there.
With his mother, Jijabai?
With his mother, Jijabai, and the administrator, Daduji Kondev. Then at 12, as he grows up, Shivaji takes direct control of the Jagir in the real sense of the term. And he shifts completely to Pune, क्योंकि right between the ages of 6 and 12, he's flitting between Pune and Bangalore. You know,
while his father is on several military campaigns.
Correct. और वो पिता के साथ रहने जाते हैं बैंगलोर में, कुछ महीने पुणे में वापस आते हैं, फिर वापस बैंगलोर जाते हैं. Then he's traveling between these two places. But at 12, Shahaji Raja appoints him as the administrator of Pune. Because now he does not need somebody to take care of the child, because earlier he was only 6 years old. But so now instead of Dadoji Kondev, Shivaji can directly administer the Jagir, he believes, under the watch of his mother Jijabai. And Shahaji and Dadoji Konde continues to help them in this
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Yes, yes, yes. तो इस तरह से ये शुरुआत होती है. And Shivaji Maharaj, what he does in his teenage years is he starts mixing with the local population of the Deccan, of the mountains, of the hills in the Deccan. And he realizes that as he grows to the age of 14, 15, 16, that उनकी जो व्यवस्था उन्हें दिखाई दे रही है उनके इर्द गिर्द अराउंड हिम, बीजापुर की व्यवस्था हो या मुगलों की व्यवस्था हो, इट इज़ एसेंशियली एन अनजस्ट एंड ऑप्रेसिव सिस्टम. एंड ही डिसाइड्स टू टेक हिज इनिशियल फ्यू स्टेप्स ऑफ रेबेलियन. बगावत के कुछ अर्ली स्टेप्स लेना वो बहुत ही जल्द शुरू कर देते हैं एट द एज ऑफ 16.
This is when he conquers the near inaccessible parts of the More's, जो मोरे का किंगडम होता है.
That happens much later.
Okay,
when he is 26 years old. So I will tell you what he does when he is in his early teens. When he is only 16 years old, he starts issuing administrative orders in the region that he's controlling.
As a Jagirdar?
As the son of the Jagirdar.
Okay,
so
not even a
officially
Jagirdar.
the Jagirdar is his father. Because Bijapur has given the Jagir to his father.
Right.
And now Shivaji is administering the Jagir in Shahaji Raje's name.
Right.
तो जब शिवाजी 16 बरस के होते हैं, ही टेक्स अ डिसीजन कि हर एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर का एक रॉयल स्टैम्प होता है, रॉयल साइन होता है, राज मुद्रा होती है. ही इश्यूज हिज ओन राज मुद्रा, और वो संस्कृत में राज मुद्रा प्रकाशित करते हैं, अपनी इंस्क्राइब और प्रिंट करते हैं उसको. अब ये महत्वपूर्ण इसलिए है कि तभी के सभी लोग, राजा हो या माइनर सरदार हो या फिर जागीरदार हो, वो अपनी जो रॉयल सील होती थी वो पर्शियन में निकालते थे, वो संस्कृत में नहीं निकालते थे. और हिंदू राजा भी जो थे साउथ के, जो दे वर कंसिडरेबली वीकेंड राजास, इवन दे यूज्ड टू ब्रिंग आउट देयर रॉयल इंसिग्निया in Persian and not in Sanskrit. So Shivaji takes a decision that I will bring this out in Sanskrit, and he brings out the Raj Mudra in Sanskrit. And it's interesting we are talking about the Raj Mudra at this time, because we are talking immediately after the Indian Navy has dedicated its own new symbol to Shivaji's Raj Mudra. तो जो ऑक्टागोनल शेप है उसका, 8 एंगल्स का जो शेप है उनके मुद्रा का, वही मुद्रा लेकर इंडियन नेवी ने अपनी नई मुद्रा तैयार की है और उनको डेडिकेट की है छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज को. सो I thought I must talk about the mudra.
Sure, of course.
That this is the mudra that he brings out. Another thing he does, very critical thing he does at the age of 16, is he gets a complaint from a local woman in a village. अब ये उदाहरण बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है, क्योंकि इससे समझ में आता है कि शिवाजी महाराज की थिंकिंग क्या है और वो क्या करना चाह रहे हैं और वो किस तरह एग्जिस्टिंग सिस्टम को देखते हैं. तो उनको एक महिला से, एक गांव की महिला से कंप्लेंट आती है दैट शी हैज़ बीन सेक्सुअली असॉल्टेड, एंड शी हैज़ बीन सेक्सुअली असॉल्टेड बाय द पाटिल ऑफ द विलेज. अब पाटिल ये विलेज का हेड होता है, विलेज का प्रमुख होता है दक्कन में, और ही इज़ ऑल पावरफुल, उसको कोई प्रश्न पूछने वाला नहीं है. पाटिल ऑल्सो हैज़ ड्यूटीज़ ऑफ द चीफ पुलिसमैन, तो यू कैनॉट देन आस्क क्वेश्चंस टू अ पुलिसमैन, राइट? हु विल यू गो एंड कंप्लेन टू? और अगर आप सरदार जागीरदारों के पास जाओ तो तब के जागीरदार ऐसे बोलते हैं कि हमको क्या लेना देना इससे, आपका गांव का प्रमुख है ना, तो you are answerable to him, not to us.
Outside
so
of jurisdiction.
There is no justice there. So when Shivaji receives this complaint, he first determines whether the complaint is correct or not. तो उनको पता चलता है कि ये genuine complaint है. He asks his men to catch the village patil, the head of the patil, and he gives him capital punishment. तो उसके हाथ पैर तोड़े जाते हैं एज पनिशमेंट. ऑफ कोर्स कैपिटल पनिशमेंट इज पार्ट ऑफ द 17th century.
Not anymore, but
we do not have such practices anymore. बट दिस इज अ पनिशमेंट दैट ही हैंड्स आउट इमीडिएटली. तो इससे होता क्या है कि एक तो अकाउंटेबिलिटी इमीडिएटली आ जाती है कि यू आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल टू सम अथॉरिटी. आप कुछ भी आपकी मनमानी नहीं कर सकते,
आप पेरणी नहीं चला सकते अपनी.
हाँ,
कि मैं
तो,
मेरे को अधिकार मिला, मैं कुछ भी करूंगा.
आप दादागिरी नहीं कर सकते. मैं तो गांव का पाटिल हूँ, मैं कुछ भी कर सकता हूँ.
हाँ.
और ये जो फीफ होल्डर सोसाइटी है, फ्यूडल सोसाइटी है, इसमें तो यही सब चलता था ना.
करेक्ट.
तो सडनली व्हेन शिवाजी ऑर्डर्स दिस पनिशमेंट एंड द पनिशमेंट इज कैरिड आउट, द मूड ऑफ द लोकल पॉपुलेशन चेंजेस. Suddenly they start seeing hope for their own future, for their families, for their women, for their children. और हमको कुछ न्याय मिलने की शक्यता अब निर्माण हो गई है. ऐसे उनका सोच, इस सोच में बदलाव आ जाता है. This is of course the first move, but this first move is important because it sends out a certain message. It also sends out a certain message to vested interests, like this village patil. या और कोई सरदार होगा, या देशमुख थे जो रेवेन्यू कलेक्शन करते थे गांव में.
आई वाज गोना आस्क कि अब मराठी सरनेम्स बहुत सारे बन गए हैं, देशमुख, पाटिल वगैरह, जो आपकी किताब के अंदर आर एक्चुअली रोल्स दैट पीपल ऑक्यूपाइड.
यस यस, these are functions that people used to perform in the village, and that is how they became surnames. So Patil is the village head, that is the
What
designation. Deshmukh is the sub district and district head.
Okay.
हाँ, so district का जो इंचार्ज होता था उसको देशमुख कहा जाता था. उसको रेवेन्यू कलेक्शन जो पूरा डिस्ट्रिक्ट का है उसके राइट्स होते थे. अब देशमुख, अभी सारे पाटिल बुरे नहीं थे. हाँ. अच्छे भी पाटिल जैसे आज की तरह, हाँ, अच्छे भी लोग थे और बुरे भी थे. लेकिन जो बुरे थे उनके लिए कोई अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं थी. और देशमुख में भी वैसे ही था कि अच्छे भी थे, बुरे भी थे, लेकिन अकाउंटेबिलिटी नहीं थी. अगर आपको टैक्स देना है तो आपको देशमुख को देना है, तो वो कोई भी अमाउंट आपसे पूछ सकता है. आर्बिट्ररी कलेक्शन हो रहा है, तो उसको स्ट्रीमलाइन करने का कोई तरीका नहीं था. तो शिवाजी महाराज लेटर इन हिज लाइफ ऑल्सो स्ट्रीमलाइन दैट सिस्टम ऑफ रेवेन्यू कलेक्शन. So I am talking about how he shook the vested interests very early on in his life.
Right.
तो देशमुख को भी वो मैसेज गया कि हम मनमानी नहीं कर सकते. एंड यहाँ से ये बगावत की शुरुआत in the real sense begins, because he is fighting the not just the kingdoms. See, the kingdoms are of course the big states, but he is fighting the established order. जब आप पाटिल और देशमुख को, because they form the official bureaucracy and the officialdom, so he starts attacking that.
Yeah. That is where his rebellion truly begins.
And at the age of 18, 2 years later, by the age of 18, he captures 4 forts belonging to Bijapur. Now, this is a direct rebellion. This is his second step. और ये एक मेजर स्टेप हो जाती है, क्योंकि आप तो एक जागीर को देख रहे हो आप ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ योर फादर. दैट जागीर बिलोंग्स टू बीजापुर, द फोर्ट्स बिलोंग टू बीजापुर. He sends his men there, he goes there himself, and he starts taking control of those forts.
And what about, so I have a question around, like, say his leadership and men believing in him.
Yeah.
Now he's leading his first attack, or his,
Yeah.
you know, like doling out justice at 16, then at 18.
Yeah.
Some of the men in his armies must be older. How
Yeah.
does a younger man with maybe sheer courage acquire the strength to lead other men? Like, what is it about him that makes men rally around him?
That's a good question. One is he has natural leadership qualities, and that is something that I found out right through the research I was doing for my book, that there is a natural leadership quality. He has an ability to win over people, and people see him as genuine. They don't see him as somebody who is simply representing some vested interests.
Correct.
And they start believing in him as somebody who can give them and their families and their community a future. That is why I mentioned the 2 incidents that I mentioned.
Right.
क्योंकि बातें तो आप बहुत कर सकते हो, और बातें लोगों को टू एन एक्सटेंट कन्विंस भी करेंगे, बट शिवाजी महाराज एक्शंस वर्कड एंड वर लाउडर देन हिज वर्ड्स, and they ultimately played a big role in convincing the people to rally around him and to make the kind of sacrifices they would never make for anybody else. They made sacrifices for him क्योंकि उनको पता था कि ये this man is right for our society, for my house, for my household, for my children, because see, we all think about our children, right? And our families, our parents. So people were very early convinced by his early activities that what he's doing is right, we must rally behind him. Of course, there were also people who dismissed him, as an upstart, and people said, what is he going to do?
Aurangzeb
Because-
called him a mountain rat.
Correct. And he, you see, when he's starting out, he's a nobody. But then it becomes a David versus Goliath kind of fight, where he takes on a giant empire. From one corner of the Deccan, he emerges. He takes on a gargantuan, and gigantic empire. One of the most powerful empires in the world, not just in India. And imagine an empire that rules from Afghanistan in the northwest to Bengal in the east and right up to Maharashtra in the west.
Right.
And it's threatening to come further down the south. तो इस तरह के साम्राज्य को चैलेंज करना ये बहुत बड़ी बात थी. एंड बिकॉज यू सेड वी शुड set him in the time period, look at this framework and look at the rebellion he starts. So because of this rebellion, why he is important is that he completely changed the political architecture not only of the Deccan but of all of India. इसका कारण ये है कि he, in spite of all the challenges that he had and the size of the kingdoms he was fighting, he established his own state, independent state. He crowned himself a king.
Right.
And he shook the Mughal Empire, which was at the height of its success, to its foundations, and that sowed the seeds of the eventual fall and destruction of the Mughal Empire.
Right.
And he created the ground for the further expansion of Maratha power. And then, as we know, Maratha power goes all the way to Attock in Pakistan, which is now in Pakistan.
So you're saying at some point the Maratha Empire was as far as Attock? You're basically saying it expanded till there?
Yes. They went up to the
This is after Shivaji's death, right?
Yes. But because he has created the independent state and because he has created institutions and a set of values, the Marathas are able to expand further to North India.
Before that, were the Marathas a fragmented group of tribes? Were they a fragmented group of people who were Jagirdars, or were they just simply a group represented by a certain last names? Were they actually unified before that?
See, they were unified.
Sorry, I'm just cutting off there because I was on Wikipedia and I was looking up the Maratha Empire, and it said it was established by Shivaji, which means that there was no predecessor.
Political predecessor, there wasn't. So he's the pioneer.
Okay.
If you speak in cultural terms, the Maharashtrian identity was always there. And in the medieval era, the Bhakti saint poets cemented this identity and strengthened the cultural identity of Maharashtra and Maharashtrians with their poetry and the development of the Marathi language over centuries.
Right.
Actually further strengthened that identity. But Shivaji is the man who really creates a Maratha independent political state, which in turn results in the creation of the Maratha Empire, which then replaces the Mughal Empire in a way by going all the way up to Attock, which is now in Pakistan, and in the east up to Bengal. So the successors of Shivaji take it there. Not the family successors. The family successors put up a brave, valiant fight against Aurangzeb and the Mughals. Sambhaji Maharaj, Shivaji's son, Raja Ram, his other son, Tarabai, various people belonging to the family. But the Peshwas later expanded further across India. So,
interesting.
So उनका महत्व ये है that he shakes the Mughal Empire to its foundations and takes it along the path to destruction.
So, Vaibhav, what was your personal inclination to write the book? Is it because you mentioned the town Purandar and your last name is Purandare? I figured like यहाँ पे कोई ना कोई connection हो सकता है. Maybe people who have last names Purandare come from there. Or because look, there is already so much scholarship on Shivaji that existed. Okay. I know for a fact that he's often mentioned as one of the several figures in India that people are very proud about, that they hold in deep pride.
Right.
Why did you decide to take up this venture? Especially when you work at TOI, you don't really need to write a book. Does it come from some kind of personal inspiration to maybe understand your state better? Are you related to him?
It's a very good question. I have been researching Shivaji's life for a long time now, actually. Of course, it took me 7 years or 8 years to write this book. But the research began much earlier. और उसका कारण ये था कि we do talk about Shivaji as a major figure. It's not that we do not talk about him as a major figure. But he has not got the kind of treatment from historians that he and writers of Indian history that he should have got.
Why would you say that?
I would say that because for two reasons. One is that much of the discourse on Indian history has for decades been dominated by the focus on the Mughal Empire.
Correct.
And a correction there was necessary, I felt, because here's this big man, this man who actually overturns the entire empire, and actually sows the seeds of its destruction, forms the Maratha Empire, takes on all the foreign powers also. He is in a sense the creator and the father of the Indian Navy as we know it today. And why has he not got that kind of treatment which he deserved? And why are we not looking closely enough at him? The other thing you mentioned is there is a lot of scholarship on Shivaji. I would disagree with that. And I will tell you why I am disagreeing with that. क्योंकि आप अगर available scholarship को देखोगे शिवाजी महाराज की लाइफ पर, तो दो स्टैंडर्ड किताबें इंग्लिश में है. एक जादूनाथ सरकार की है, एक डेनिस किनकेड की है. डेनिस किनकेड एक ब्रिटिश ऑफिशियल थे. ये दोनों किताबें अराउंड 100 years ओल्ड हैं. और इन किताबों में बहुत बहुत गलतियां भरी हुई हैं. उसका कारण ये है कि देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ आउटडेटेड इन्फॉर्मेशन देयर. I will give you 2-3 simple examples. कि शिवाजी's birth year is 1630. But if you look at Jadunath Sarkar's book and Dennis Kincaid's book, it is mentioned as 1627. That was because documents related to Shivaji's birth and many documents related to Shivaji's life were not available when they were researching their books.
They were burnt.
But at the same time, those books continue to be the standard books in English. I will give you another example. There are so many letters, so much of correspondence. There are so many Maratha papers in the Marathi language. More than 20 volumes of those papers. And Jadunath Sarkar हो या डेनिस किनकेड हो, वो मराठी पढ़ नहीं सकते थे. उन्होंने वो डॉक्यूमेंट्स रेफर ही किए नहीं हैं, और वो बहुत ही क्रिटिकल डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं. बिकॉज आई एम अ महाराष्ट्रियन, अ मराठी स्पीकिंग पर्सन, I write in English, but I read Marathi. I can read Marathi extremely well and research the original documents in Marathi. I have referenced close to 25 volumes in Marathi of all kinds of Maratha documents. It is administrative papers, it is orders issued by Shivaji and his mother, his father, other soldiers and generals associated with him, letters, correspondence, all kinds of documents.
He was truly a man of letters. I've seen so many excerpts you have in the book.
So you will see in my book the kind of correspondence and letters that you will not see in the other biographies in English. So this was very important. I refer to a vast variety of Marathi sources which are critical to understanding Shivaji's life and times. And these documents were not referred to earlier. So I can certainly claim that I have been able to illumine aspects of Shivaji's life which have not been illuminated earlier in the earlier biographies. So you are right, there is scholarship, but that scholarship is not only incomplete, but it is horribly incomplete. I will give you another example of it. एक बॉलीवुड की मूवी आई थी कुछ सालों पहले, तानाजी, जिसको नेशनल अवार्ड्स भी मिले वगैरह वगैरह, मतलब some of the awards, and it was a big hit. It was seen across the country. तो अभी आप सभी शिवाजी की पहले वाली बायोग्राफीज पढ़ोगे, कोई भी ले लीजिए, तो उसमें आपको एक मेंशन दिखाई देगा कि व्हेन तानाजी सैक्रिफाइस हिज लाइफ एंड वन बैक द फोर्ट ऑफ कोंढाणा फ्रॉम द मुगल्स इन 1670, शिवाजी got very upset.
Tanhaji was his stepbrother?
No, Tanhaji was one of his loyal commandants.
Okay.
He was a loyal soldier, a friend and a soldier, and he had dedicated his life to Shivaji and his cause, and he sacrificed his life when fighting for reclaiming the fort of Kondhana, and the story you will hear, and it's become a legend. that story. That जब तानाजी गुजर गए when he after the fight, शिवाजी महाराज इतने अपसेट हो गए और उन्होंने कोंढाणा ये फोर्ट का नाम बदल कर सिंहगढ़ रख दिया. उन्होंने ऐसे कहा कि गढ़ आला पण सिंह गेला. इसका मतलब गढ़ तो मिल गया, हम जीत गए, लेकिन सिंह मेरा गया. मतलब ही डाइड, ही इज माई लायन, ही इज डाइड. सो द फोर्ट हैज बीन वन बट द लायन इज डेड. अभी ये हमने सब ने ये स्टोरी सुनी हुई है. या मूवीज़ देखो, किताबें पढ़ो, टेक्स्ट बुक्स पढ़ो, सब जगह है. अभी ये स्टोरी पूरी तरह से गलत है. इसका कारण ये है कि आप अगर मराठी लेटर्स शिवाजी महाराज के खुद के देखोगे तो कोंढाणा का दूसरा नाम तानाजी के गुजर जाने से बहुत पहले से सिंहगढ़ था.
ओके.
कोंढाणा वॉज ऑल्सो नोन एज सिंहगढ़.
राइट.
एंड बिकॉज शिवाजी महाराज के लेटर्स हैं जो आई हैव रिप्रोड्यूस्ड इन द बुक, उसमें भी सिंहगढ़ का मेंशन है कि दिस इज वेल बिफोर तानाजी डाइज, तानाजी मालुसरे डाइज. तो सिंहगढ़ है. एंड बिकॉज द नेम वॉज सिंहगढ़, शिवाजी महाराज सेड गढ़ आला पण सिंह गेला. That is why he uses the lion metaphor. Otherwise, he could have used any other metaphor, na? Right. Why is he saying Sinha Gela? And why is he saying Gad and Sinha? Because the name of the place is Sinhagad.
Right.
So this is a differentiation that we ought to make between stories, legends. See, legends by themselves, I respect legends because they tell you something about the cultural history of a people. Right. And why certain symbols are important.
Yeah.
But this shows that, okay, part of it was not correct, but part of it is correct. So it is part myth, part correction of
right.
that of a part of that myth. So cultural myths are important, but we have to examine to what extent they are correct and make corrections wherever necessary. So I have made many such corrections in this book.
There are also mentions. You want to have your coffee? Just also, by the way, तो ठंडी हो जाएगी नहीं तो. हाँ. I've also seen mentions in the book of the now you mentioned in the book कि बहुत सारे correspondences जो शिवाजी की तरफ से औरंगजेब को गए थे वो नहीं मिले.
हाँ.
लेकिन औरंगजेब के correspondence शिवाजी को मिल गए हैं.
हाँ.
मतलब the ones that we've been able to successfully recover, and in those
you're right.
Or two things from there. One, what is wonderful about his techniques or his shrewdness or his military acumen is that he does ruthless expansion as required, but जब भी ऐसा लगता है कि हम हारने वाले हैं, he sends like a polite surrender notice, right, to retreat, and then he also does this other thing. Whenever he acquires new territories, he tells Aurangzeb, मैं तो आपके लिए कर रहा हूँ, आपके लिए कर रहा हूँ, which is so brilliant.
बीजापुर के साथ भी वही करते हैं. हाँ. For a long time.
Which is so brilliant because you would assume कि कोई valiant, courageous fighter है जिसका आज भी नाम है, you would just assume कि bravery का मतलब है कि किसी में जाके जंग में जाके लड़ जाते हैं. लेकिन actually उनकी bravery is also in understanding military strategy. Like when am I outnumbered or when am I, like I have the strategic advantage.
Yes. I think this is a brilliant point you have made, and in fact this is one of the highlights of my book that I wanted to illuminate and highlight what an intelligent strategist he was. He was a highly intelligent man. He did not see any merit if he had 1,000 people to go into the plains and fight a force of 1 lakh people and everybody would get slaughtered. No. He didn't want life to be wasted like that. He wanted to fight intelligently for the survival, for the success and the progress of his own people.
Right.
So he very smartly, like you said, in fact you summed it up nicely, that he expands steadily and definitely and without any hesitation and very strongly, assertively. At the same time, whenever he feels he must take steps back, he takes those steps back. He does not hesitate to do that. So I think we in the 21st century, for us, he also redefines what real courage is all about. Because हमको काफ़ी बार ऐसे बताया जाता है कि you go fight and sacrifice and die and that is bravery. Not necessarily. You survive and live the day and you get greater success on the second day by surviving. तो आप अपने जो प्रतिस्पर्धी है उसको और भी अच्छी तरह से हरा सकते हो अगर आप अपने आप को अननेसेसरीली सैक्रिफाइस ना करो. जहाँ सैक्रिफाइस की ज़रूरत है आपको करनी पड़ती है, बट वेरी इंटेलिजेंटली स्ट्रैटेजी करके यू विड्रॉ व्हेन देयर इज़ अ नीड टू विड्रॉ. You write conciliatory letters. So he writes conciliatory letters to Aurangzeb, to the Adil Shah, to the others. whenever he wants to make peace. And then when the moment he gets an opportunity, he strikes. He strikes back. A remarkable thing about his career is when he's facing a serious crisis around 1665, 1666, when Aurangzeb has sent one of his big Hindu generals to fight against him, Mirza Raje Jai Singh. And Mirza Raje Jai Singh almost takes over all of the territory. So Shivaji Maharaj is forced to surrender 23 of his forts. That is almost 60% of his, more than 60% of his major forts to the Mughals. And many people are thinking now it's finished. See, anyway, many people are thinking that why did he start this political enterprise?
They don't already take him seriously.
No, some of them. See, a lot of people are taking him seriously by now because they can see the courage, they can see the bravery, they can see the achievement. He has already killed Afzal Khan. He has already chopped off the fingers of Aurangzeb's maternal uncle, Shaiste Khan.
That's the story that he was mentioning before. We were just having a conversation.
And it's an incredible attack on Shaiste Khan in the night, in the middle of the night, you know. There is incredible bravery. So bravery is also extraordinary. The smartness and withdrawal is also extraordinary. So he is extraordinary in many ways. And I'm glad you mentioned it because I have tried to show in my book how he intelligently went about building his state.
It isn't like some young upstart rebel who just believes in ki kar denge, dekh lenge. It's also the sort of seasoned military strategy approach that you would not find from someone who is that young. I'm reminded of a story, this old Native American story about how these Native Americans are, being attacked by colonial forces from all ends.
Yeah.
So the tribe is effectively split in two groups. The one warrior who's seen several wars. You know how Native Americans have different names, right?
Yeah.
Like Blue Feather or Thunderbird, stuff like that. So let's just say this warrior called Thunderbird. He's more conservative, but the young blood warriors, they're like, agar hum log outnumbered hai, fir bhi ladenge. But then he says, being a true warrior isn't always about winning the war today. It's about winning the war tomorrow
Eventually.
as well. So you want to live to fight another day.
Right.
So that's where it might look like you're being cowardly, but it's actually the most courageous.
No, it does not look cowardly. I think in the 21st century, we have come across this whole idea of cowardice. Because see, आप अगर 17वें शतक में हो, आप अगर 16वें सेंचुरी में हो, 15वें हो, तो you are fighting every day.
Yeah,
see, in the 21st and 20th centuries, we are living in peace time. We fight once in a while. So then we take defeat and retreat very badly.
Yeah.
हाँ, तो आप अगर रोज लड़ रहे हो, so you are also aware that defeat and retreat is a part and parcel of that fight.
Right.
You will have to retreat. At the same time, not everybody in the 17th century shows that smartness.
Yeah.
But Shivaji Maharaj has the vision and the ability to look into the future and understand that the cause has to be ultimately successful. Whether he is seen as brave or not is besides the point. But the cause has to be served. Right. And he figures out which is the best way to serve the cause. And he takes that route, depending on the situation. So he surrenders more than 60% of his forts to Mirza Raja Jai Singh and to the Mughals. Now many people think that he's finished. अभी क्या बचा है? सब तो खत्म हो गया है. The Mughals are here. He goes to Agra. There is a big showdown between him and Aurangzeb.
Face to face?
Face to face.
They face each other's armies?
Yes. No. In the court. In the court, when Shivaji Maharaj goes to Aurangzeb's court, Aurangzeb ignores him, tries to humiliate him. Then he puts him in prison. For 4 months he is in prison. And he's going to be killed. And he carries out an incredible escape from Aurangzeb's custody. And he comes back to the Deccan and he rebuilds his state. और वो rebuild इस तरह से करते हैं कि not only does he win back all the forts he has lost, more than 60%, वो हर एक fort वो recover कर लेते हैं. जब लोगों को ऐसे लगता है अभी तो कुछ बचा ही नहीं, कैसे, with the help of his comrades, of course.
Yeah.
And he further expands his rule. He crowns himself king, declaring that now I am no longer just a rebel. Now I am a legitimate authority. तो उसमें भी उनका विजन दिखाई देता है कि वो जो क्राउनिंग इवेंट है उनका, इट इज़ नॉट एन एक्ट ऑफ सेल्फ इंडल्जेंस कि मुझे राजा होना है, नहीं, इंस्टीट्यूशन बिल्डिंग के लिए राजा होना ज़रूरी है. अगर आप किसी को बोल रहे हो कि आई एम सेटिंग द रूल्स इन दिस प्लेस एंड माई लॉज हैव टू बी फॉलोड, तो एक आदमी बोलेगा अरे ये जागीर तो मुगलों की, आपकी नहीं है, नहीं मैं यहाँ का क्राउंड राजा हूँ, देन दिस इज माई रूल, देन द पर्सन विल फॉलो दैट ऑर्डर because you are establishing your own order,
right?
The rule of law. So why crowning is important? For the establishment and legitimizing of his own authority, and he recognizes the importance of that. Right. So he does not remain a rebel all his life. The moment he realizes I am in a position to crown myself, he does that. क्योंकि स्टेट बिल्डिंग उनका जो मकसद है वो स्टेट बिल्डिंग का है, वो इंस्टीट्यूशन बिल्डिंग का है, वो ऐसा सिर्फ कॉन्स्टेंट वॉरफेयर का मतलब नहीं. हाँ. और what he does after the crowning in 1674 is he expands further. तो वो कर्नाटका में जाते हैं, मुहिम करते हैं. He wins parts of Karnataka. He goes to the Andhras. He passes through the Andhras and the parts of the Karnataka region, and he goes all the way to the eastern coastline near Tanjavur. And his half brother Venkoji Bhosle, is the founder of the Thanjavur dynasty. So the Marathas established their rule in Thanjavur, and Shivaji captures areas on the eastern coast. So look at the vision. He was not just, of course, his state at the core was culturally a Maratha state and a Hindu state. But his vision went well beyond Maharashtra. Because if he just wanted to establish a Marathi state, why would he have gone to the Karnatakas? Why would he have gone to the Andhras? Why would he have gone to Tamil Nadu? He is going to Tamil Nadu and capturing areas and looking to administer areas there.
If he was alive today, he would be a great businessman who would expand to different places. Because I remember one passage of the book literally gave me goosebumps when he suddenly realizes कि अब मैंने, and in his early teens only, मैंने अब ठीक ठाक अपना नाम वगैरह कर लिया, but now I must look more to what is in my father's jagir. And that instinct,
correct,
because it's a very rare instinct, right? Like most people assume you are handed the throne and then you just have to protect it. But the instinct to expand, right? The instinct that, say, my color or my emblem slowly expands across the map, right?
Correct.
That is something that people cannot intuit as well in the modern times.
Right.
That say maybe it was a consequence of his times that you were looking to acquire more and more power through different means. But just the fact that he was on an expansion campaign. Like I'm sure, all media institutions have a bias to only report winners, right? We know about Shivaji because he's a winner.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there must be other contemporaries who didn't have any of his glory because they didn't just have that thing that is needed to, maintain legacies and build an empire, which is the core of it is expansion.
It's a very good point you've made. I think in the vision, which is why I mentioned the vision, Vinamre, that the vision comes through all the time in his career. So right from the age of 16, जब वो राज मुद्रा अपनी संस्कृत में लेते हैं, तो from that time he understands the importance of the Raj Mudra. He's culturally asserting himself. See, earlier, before his era and before the Islamic invasions happened, the Raj Mudras used to be in Sanskrit, in other languages. But after Islamic rule is established all over India, all the royal seals are in Persian.
Right.
Even his parents' seals are in Persian. But he makes a departure there. He's saying, no, I want my seal in Persian, in Sanskrit, not in Persian. So look at the departure at a very young age of 16.
Yeah.
At the same time, is he anti-Muslim? No, he's fighting Islamic powers. And he is against fundamentalist Muslims like Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb fundamentalist हो जाता है, वो मंदिरों को उद्ध्वस्त करना शुरू कर देता है, काशी मथुरा he destroys. And by the way, Aurangzeb's official directives talk about how he ordered the destruction of Kashi and Mathura.
We have evidence for that?
Yeah, we have evidence for it. His own court documents have it.
Okay.
I have quoted also Masir Alamgiri and all these Mughal records, basically.
Right.
So, and then he imposes customs duties on Hindus. He imposes unjust taxes on Hindus. तो शिवाजी को ये पता चलता है कि this cultural kind of wiping out is something we must fight against.
Right.
लेकिन at the same time he has a tremendous respect for all faiths and all people of faiths. तो उनके written instructions है जो मैंने मेंशन किए मेरे किताब में, कि अगर उनके सोल्जर्स को, कि अगर आपको मुसलमानों की जो होली किताब है, द होली बुक कुरान कहीं मिले, तो उसको आप रिस्पेक्टफुली ट्रीट करके जो जिसकी वो किताब है उसको रिस्पेक्टफुली वापस कर दीजिए. अगर कोई पीर या कोई होली मुस्लिम सेंट है आपको दिखे, तो उसे आप कुछ भी तकलीफ मत दीजिए. आपको कोई भी, आप अगर किसी फोर्ट में जाते हो और उसको कैप्चर करते हो और वहाँ पे बच्चे और महिलाएं हैं, तो उनको आदर से आप ट्रीट कीजिए. रिलीज देम एंड एंश्योर दैट दे रीच होम सेफली. डोंट जस्ट से कि गो होम, यू नो, इट्स लाइक दैट. सो ensure that they reach home safely. When he raids Surat in 1664, he carries out a raid against Surat, which is one of the big centers of the Mughal Empire. That is after Shahaji, that is after Shaiste Khan has raided his territories and looted stuff from there. So he says, okay, now you've taken away everything. I need to get stuff back. So I will get stuff from your territory. So he goes and raids Surat. इवन व्हेन ही इज रेडिंग सूरत, वहाँ पे क्रिश्चियन लोगों का मिशन है. तो वो उनके ऑर्डर्स है जो मैंने अगेन आई हैव रिप्रोड्यूस्ड इन दिस बुक, कि वहाँ पे वो फ्रेंच कैपुचिन मिशन है और वो क्रिश्चियन प्रीस्ट है. तो उनको वो अपने लोगों को बोल रहे हैं कि वहाँ पे किसी भी प्रीस्ट को कोई भी किसी भी तरह की तकलीफ नहीं होनी चाहिए. उनको ट्रीट देम रिस्पेक्टफुली. एंड ही ऑल्सो सेंड्स अ टीम ऑफ सोल्जर्स टू गार्ड द क्रिश्चियन मिशन, कि इनको कोई आकर तकलीफ ना दे, कि इनको आप आदर से रखो. तो वो ही इज एस्टेब्लिशिंग अ हिंदू पॉलिटी, क्योंकि कल्चरली ही डजंट वांट टू बी वाइप्ड आउट एज अ हिंदू, एंड ही डजंट लाइक इट दैट औरंगजेब जस्ट कम्स एंड does whatever he wants. And Aurangzeb treats not only the Hindus badly but the Sikhs badly as well. You know,
right.
he beheads the leaders of the Sikhs.
Right.
You know,
scalping is a common practice.
Yes. Yeah. He forcibly converts people. And Shivaji says that he will not allow his cultural identity to be obliterated, and he will fight back, and he fights back.
Right.
But at the same time, his Hindu polity is tolerant और inclusive है. अभी शिवाजी महाराज इंडियन नेवी के कैसे क्रिएटर थे, इसकी काफ़ी चर्चा हो रही है आजकल. और the other day the Prime Minister mentioned it. Right. And the Navy's emblem is a tribute to Shivaji Maharaj.
You mentioned several times in the book that he is responsible for making the first Maratha Navy fleet.
Yes, true.
Right?
True.
Because once he acquired like ports and all, he's like, it's now time to build ships, which is rare, right? You would not expect like a small kingdom to do that. It was only something that only empires could do with the resources that they had.
Yeah. I can explain that to you if you want.
Hello, Ramesh. Yeah. Hi, yaar. So sorry I'm calling at this hour. Good time to speak? Oh, it'll only take 2 minutes. So, could you please edit the PDF and make changes in line number 3? Oh, you're out right now. Oh, you're also drinking. But the boss wants it.
ऐसी सिचुएशन हर इंसान के साथ हुई है. आप टीम्स में काम करते हो, खासकर तो यू नो व्हाट आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट. एक बंदा लापरवाह है, आधा अधूरा काम करता है, PDF बनाता है और घर चला जाता है, पार्टी करने चला जाता है. दूसरा बंदा एक्स्ट्रा हार्ड वर्क कर रहा है, 3 बजे तक काम कर रहा है, फिर वो देखता है यार मैं चेंजेस ही नहीं कर सकता, बंदा गायब है, मिसिंग है, क्या करोगे? फिर शक्ल देखोगे उसकी, अगले दिन बॉस से डांट खाओगे. इससे बढ़िया अगर इस बंदे के पास वंडर शेयर का PDF एलिमेंट होता, वो जाता PDF टू वर्ड कन्वर्ट करता, अपनी मैजिकल चेंजेस करता, वर्ड टू PDF, काम खत्म, सुबह बॉस को सबमिट. बंदा हैंगओवर में आ रहा है, दूसरा वाला बोल रहा है ब्रो ये कैसे, तुम क्रेडिट भी ले रहे हो और उसकी बेइज्जती भी कर रहे हो. विन विन सिचुएशन. इससे बढ़िया कुछ है ही नहीं. मैं ऑनेस्टली बता रहा हूँ, अफोर्डेबल, ईजी, फास्ट, सारा बढ़िया सोल्यूशन है. आप PDF को एडिट, फॉर्मेट, कन्वर्ट सब कर सकते हो. मोबाइल, वेब, फोन पे, हर जगह बैठे बैठे. ये भी नहीं है कि यार मेरा लैपटॉप नहीं है, मैं काम नहीं कर सकता. फोन पे भी हो सकती है चीज़. मतलब एज अ पॉडकास्टर मैं खुद बताऊँ आपको, एक पॉडकास्ट का एपिसोड बनाने के लिए ना बहुत रिसर्च लगती है. मेरे एप्पल के फ़ोन नोट्स होते हैं, उसके अंदर कुछ चीज़ें होती हैं. मेरे कुछ ऐसे एक्सर्प्ट्स होते हैं जो मैं किसी और फोल्डर के अंदर रखता हूँ. कुछ यूट्यूब वीडियोस की लिंक्स होती हैं. बेसिकली डिफरेंट रिसोर्सेज होती हैं. मुझे उन सब को ना एक PDF में क्रिस्टलाइज करने के लिए PDF एलिमेंट से काफ़ी हेल्प मिल जाती है. ठीक है, तो मैं तो आपको सजेस्ट करूँगा, चाहे आप HR में काम करते हो, PR में काम करते हो, VR में काम करते हो, आँख बंद करके भाई साहब वंडर शेयर का PDF एलिमेंट लगा लो. 2022 आ चुका है. अगर अब तक भी अपने नोट्स तुम्हारे यहाँ वहाँ स्कैटर्ड है ना, अगर अब तक भी तुम यहाँ वहाँ घूम रहे हो यार कि शिट यार वो चीज़ रह गई, then you're doing something wrong.
get Wondershare's PDF element and become a master knowledge worker. जैसे बोलते हैं ना ऐसे resumes के अंदर increase productivity by 30%. That could be you. Wondershare PDF element को download करने के सारे links description में हैं. Thank you. Yeah, before we get into that, I wanted to ask you one more question about his father, because I found that very interesting. You know, that is relationship with his father is frail. It's not that good, right?
No, I have not suggested that at all. I'm not suggesting that the relationship with the father is frail. The father and he have a strong bond, but the bond with the mother is extraordinary.
Okay.
And in fact, he takes a lot of inspiration from his father in terms of his military skills and ability. And he is most upset with Afzal Khan. Also, one of the reasons he's very upset with Afzal Khan is that Afzal Khan ने बेडियों में शाहजी राजे को बेडिया डालकर साउथ से वो लेकर आए थे बैंगलोर और बीजापुर तक.
बंदी बना लिया था ना.
हाँ, बंदी बना लिया था और उनको लेकर आए थे बिकॉज बीजापुर सस्पेक्टेड शाहजी राजे ऑफ बीइंग बिहाइंड हिज सन्स रेबेलियन.
करेक्ट.
एंड देयर इज एन इंटरेस्टिंग इंसिडेंट व्हिच आई हैव मेंशन्ड इन द बुक दैट व्हेन शाहजी राजे डाइज, Shivaji tells his mother that, now there is no elder left to witness my success. So that is how far the father is important for him. That, look, I want him, it's like this, na? I wanted him to be around to see how successful I had become. And Shahaji Raja also plays his thing very smartly. So when he continues to serve Bijapur. You can take the mic. Okay. He continues to... Acha, okay. Okay, like this. He continues to serve the Adil Shahi kingdom. But when the Adil Shahi kingdom complains to him that your son is doing all that and he's rebelling against the kingdom, he says, I can't do anything. You guys deal with him the way you want. So he shakes his hands of the matter. He never condemns his son's activities. He never says that, no, I will go and punish him. If he were really...
he treats him as an independent.
Yeah.
मेरे कहने में नहीं है, ये अपना करता है.
हाँ, so क्या है, he's also being very smart about the way he's going about things. He is not openly rebelling, and we do not have direct evidence that he's supportive of his son's activities. But at the same time, we have evidence that he shrugs his... he just shrugs his hands off. He shakes his hands off, saying that, what can I do? I can't do anything. So in a sense, that suggests some kind of indirect approval.
Correct. Of
what is going on and what Shivaji is doing. Though we cannot assert that, okay, he's backing him 100% and giving him ideas and supporting him.
Now let's discuss the correlation between the Indian Navy and its recent Rajmudra, that they have parallels with the Shivaji's Rajmudra and whatnot.
Yeah. Shivaji is correctly known as the father of the Indian Navy. And this is the first official acknowledgement by an Indian government that he is the father of the Indian Navy. अभी जो Navy ने जो अपना symbol नया शिवाजी महाराज को dedicate किया है, और the Prime Minister also dedicated it to Shivaji, वो सही बात है. इसका कारण he is truly the father of the Indian Navy. इसका कारण मैं आपको बता सकता हूँ कि आप अगर 17th सेंचुरी को देखें और अगर आप चोलास जो थे साउथ में उनको देखें, द चोला पावर वॉज एक्सटिंग्विश्ड इन द 1250s. ओके, उसके बाद देर आर 5-6 सेंचुरीज दैट जस्ट पास. उसमें होता ऐसा है कि द मुगल्स डोंट बिल्ड देयर ओन नेवी. The Adil Shahi kingdom does not build its own navy. The Nizam Shahi doesn't do it. The Qutub Shahi doesn't do it.
Do they outsource it to others, or do they not consider it valuable?
So they completely turned a blind eye towards it for reasons best known to them.
Okay.
तो उसका परिणाम ये होता है कि slowly in the medieval era the foreigners start coming in. तो ब्रिटिश आ जाते हैं, अपना अस्तित्व वहाँ निर्माण करते थे. वो कोस्टल पार्ट जो है वो कंट्रोल करना शुरू कर देते. पोर्चुगीज़ आ जाते 1510 साल में गोवा में, और वो गोवा दे टेक ओवर गोवा, दे टेक ओवर अदर पार्ट्स ऑन द कोस्ट लाइन. फ्रेंच आ जाते हैं ईस्टर्न कोस्ट पर, पौंडीचेरी में, वो पौंडीचेरी ले लेते और ईस्टर्न कोस्ट का काफ़ी भाग वो कंट्रोल कर
बिकॉज
देते हैं।
हमारे रूलर्स ने जितने भी अर्स्ट वाले हैं उन्होंने सोचा ही नहीं इस बारे में,
उन्होंने
trade चल
सोचा
रही
ही
है वहाँ
नहीं
पे।
है। हाँ, बस और डच भी आ जाते हैं उसमें। तो डच तो द फ्रेंच आर देयर, द ब्रिटिशर्स आर देयर, the Portuguese are there and the Dutch are there, and between themselves these foreigners are controlling India's massive coastline.
Yeah.
There are some Muslims, the Siddhis of Janjira for instance, on the western coast
of African descent,
correct,
right?
yeah, they are Abyssinians, मतलब अफ्रीका से आए हो। तो वो लेकिन वो बहुत ही छोटे भागों में कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं। And surprisingly, the Islamic powers also neglected the sea. Though the Arabs are known to be very famous seafaring people, they also neglected. तो all the control was in the hands of the foreigners. और किसी ने ये सोचा भी नहीं, अगर मुग़ल एम्परर है और उसकी फैमिली है, अगर आदिल शाह उसकी फैमिली है, उनको मक्का मदीना अपने होली साइट्स में जाना है, तो उनको लाइसेंस और अप्रूवल लेना पड़ता है ब्रिटिश और पोर्चुगीज़ लोगों से। अगर आपको घोड़े मंगवाने हैं अभी बाहर से, क्योंकि घोड़े काफ़ी इंपोर्ट हुए मिडीवल ईरा में, उसके बाद अगर घोड़े मंगवाने हैं, अगर कोई भी गुड्स एंड सर्विस कमोडिटीज़ आपको अंदर लाना है या बाहर भेजना है ट्रेड के लिए, तो आपको फॉरेनर का परमिट चाहिए।
So they basically suffocated us in a lot of ways.
Correct. So Shivaji recognizes in the 17th century that the sea is extremely significant in terms of both defense and trade. So he starts capturing some of the ports like Thane, Bhiwandi, Kalyan, which are to the north of Mumbai. He starts in 1658-59 when he is just 27, 28, 29 years old. He starts doing that. He starts building his naval fleet. किसी ने ये सोचा ही नहीं कि अपनी खुद की फ्लीट खड़ी करो, क्योंकि ब्रिटिश चला रहे हैं शिप्स, पोर्चुगीज चला रहे हैं, डच चला रहे हैं और फ्रेंच भी चला रहे हैं। किसी ने सोचा नहीं। और जंजीरा में सिद्दी के लोग बैठे हुए हैं। तो ही स्टार्ट्स अटैकिंग जंजीरा, ही स्टार्ट्स बिल्डिंग हिज ओन शिप्स। अभी मराठों के पास वो टेक्नोलॉजी है नहीं शिप बिल्डिंग की, क्योंकि 6-7 सेंचुरीज में तो किसी भारतीय ने कुछ किया ही नहीं इसमें। तो टेक्नोलॉजी कहाँ से लाए? तो वो ऐसा करते हैं कि वो पोर्चुगीज़ एक्सपर्ट्स को अपॉइंट करते हैं जो पोर्चुगीज़ लोगों के लिए यहाँ शिप बिल्डिंग कर रहे हैं। हाँ, सो ही बोरोज द टेक्नोलॉजी फ्रॉम द पोर्चुगीज़। कोई ब्रिटिश इंजीनियर हो, मरीन इंजीनियर हो, उनको बोलते हैं कि मुझे मेरे लिए शिप्स बनाओ आप। और ब्रिटिश रिकॉर्ड्स में आई फाउंड मेंशंस व्हिच आई हैव मेंशन, द ब्रिटिश यूज्ड टू हैव व्हाट वर कॉल्ड एज द ब्रिटिश फैक्ट्री रिकॉर्ड्स, because their power bases were known as factories. So they had a factory in Surat, they had a factory in Rajapur, they later had a factory in Mumbai which was then called Bombay. तो वो रिकॉर्ड्स में लिखा हुआ है कि ये शिवाजी अपने एक्सपर्ट्स को लेकर जा रहा है और वो उसके लिए काम करना पसंद करते हैं, शिवाजी के लिए शिप्स बनाना पसंद करते हैं। इसका कारण ये है कि वो उनको ज़्यादा पैसे देकर उनसे काम ले रहा है, तो हमारे लोग वहाँ जा रहे हैं काम करने के लिए। और पोर्चुगीज़ के जो लोग हैं उनको मुगलों से कंप्लेंट आ रही है कि आपके लोग शिवाजी के लिए शिप्स क्यों बना रहे हैं भाई। तो पोर्चुगीज़ बोलते हैं हमने तो उनको भेजा नहीं, लेकिन वो जाके बना रहे हैं। अब वो हमारे कंट्रोल में है नहीं, वो ही इज़ निगोशिएटिंग विद देम एंड गेटिंग द शिप्स डन। सो ही सिस्टमेटिकली स्टार्ट्स बिल्डिंग द नेवी। और एक 10-15 सालों में ही स्टार्ट्स इट इन, लाइक आई सेड, 1658-59। By the time he's crowned in 1674, उनके पास 50 से ज़्यादा, over 50 combat vessels है।
Combat vessels.
Now they are of varying categories. Some are big, okay. Some are very small. Some are small to the extent that they can easily be fought against.
Right.
Okay. Because it's a very small time frame we are talking about.
Right.
बट फिर भी अलग एक गुरब करके बड़ी शिप होती है तो वो उसका निर्माण करते हैं। एक गलीवत करके लाइट वेरी वेरी क्विक मूविंग शिप होती है तो जिसमें आप लाइट एम्यूनिशन गन्स, लाइट गन्स लेके जा सकते हैं। हेवी शिप्स होती है जिसमें आप कैनन्स और बड़े गन्स लेके जा सकते हैं, तो वो शिप्स बिल्ड करते हैं। ही स्टार्ट्स फाइटिंग ऑन द सी, ट्राइंग टू कंट्रोल द सीज। सो 50 कॉम्बैक्ट वेसल्स ऑफ वेरिंग क्वालिटी ऑफ कोर्स, बट दे आर रेडी and they are fighting in the waters against the British, against the Portuguese, they are against the Siddhis of Janjira. Now it's interesting that the Siddhis of Janjira are supported constantly by the British and the Portuguese, कि उनको पता है कि अगर सिद्दीज हार गए और शिवाजी ने ये कब्जा कर लिया जंजीरा पर,
हमसे तो नहीं बात करेंगे,
क्योंकि जंजीरा इज वेरी स्ट्रेटेजिकली लोकेटेड इन द कोंकण कोस्ट लाइन, दैट फोर्ट,
Right.
इट्स इन द मिडल ऑफ द वाटर्स, तो इट विल बी अ वेरी वेंटेज पॉइंट फॉर द मराठास. तो वो उनको जीतना नहीं है, बिकॉज सिद्दीज हैव बीन कोऑपरेटिंग विद पोर्चुगीज एंड ब्रिटिश, तो वो उनको मदद करते हैं. सो बट द फाइट्स आर ऑन. And if you consider trading vessels that Shivaji has got by the year 1674, when he gets himself crowned as king, then the size of his fleet goes to 700.
What?
Trading vessels, including trading vessels.
So is he controlling all of India's western coast?
So he was trading.
Yeah.
He started trading in whatever was available from the Deccan. He started sending out. He's sending it to Basra. He's sending it to a place called Mocha, not Mokka as we know it, but this is not Makkah. This is a place called Mocha.
This is in other countries.
Correct,
right?
other countries.
Yeah. So he started in international trade on his own.
Foreign trade, yes. He starts foreign trade because the foreigners are doing it. So he looked at it. How are they doing it? And why don't we do it? And why do we need permission from these characters to do everything?
Let us control the ports.
So that is why he is the father of the Indian Navy. कि उनको जो सूझा वो किसी को सूझा नहीं था तभी. एंड कल जब आई मीन वेरी रिसेंटली जब ये अनाउंसमेंट हुई कि यू नो वी आर डेडिकेटिंग, इंडियन नेवी इज डेडिकेटिंग दिस टू इट्स ओन न्यू एनसाइन टू छत्रपति शिवाजी, बिकॉज ही इज़ द फाउंडर ऑफ द मराठा नेवी एंड इन अ सेंस द फाउंडर ऑफ द नेशनल इंडियन नेवी. काफ़ी लोगों ने ये प्रश्न पूछा, देन व्हाई नॉट द चोलास. तो इसका उत्तर ये है, इसका उत्तर मैं और भी एक्सप्लेन कर सकता हूँ, व्हाई नॉट द चोलास, कि व्हाट मेक्स शिवाजी यूनिक. चोलास जो है उनका क्रेडिट तो पूरी तरह से है ही, नोबडी कैन डिनाई देम credit and nobody should deny them credit because they are a masterful power. They, by the way, have also not got the kind of treatment in Indian history writing that they should have got. We should have written a lot more about the Cholas. They were very powerful people. They went to the east. They captured parts in Southeast Asia.
Oh, so they went beyond India.
Yeah, they went beyond India and they captured. But where the differentiation comes in is that the Cholas, the Chola power originated in the river valley. So उनको एक अंदर से ही अवेयरनेस था पानी का, और उसके पानी का महत्व क्या है उसका, because it was the river valley that then went into the sea, right? The river went into the sea. They were close to the coast. तो उनको एक जन्मजात ही एक अवेयरनेस था. Shivaji, on the other hand, after several centuries of neglect and blindness towards the water, he is not close to the waters. He is in the Sahyadri mountain ranges and he is on the Deccan plateau. वो काफ़ी दूर है कोंकण कोस्ट से. And he systematically moves towards the sea and he builds his future capital, Raigad, on the Konkan coastline in what we know as the Raigad district. So he is a man of the hills, but he builds his capital in close to the sea because he knows the importance of the sea. So that is what makes him unique. That does not mean that the Cholas deserve less credit or one is greater than the other. I think that comparison and that debate is in a way pointless because credit to dono ka hai hi. But because after centuries of defeat and all of this, he took on the foreigners who had, by the way, vastly superior naval and military technology.
Course, right.
See, when I'm talking about combats that Shivaji Maharaj and his men were having against the other naval powers, these combats could often be one-sided because the Western powers had so much, technology that this was nothing, perhaps nothing compared to them. But he laid the foundation, so that is important.
I had no idea that all of this existed, and I'm surprised that it's hard for someone to leave their homeland and their way of life और उसके बाद completely नए तरह की चीज़ों में adapt करना और कहीं और capital बना लेना. Because one would assume कि यार mountains मेरा घर है, यहाँ मेरी safety है, I know these places. It's kind of rare. It's also rare that he's, despite fighting foreign powers, he's still acquiring the best of their practices, which is something someone who's not progressive in their head cannot do.
Absolutely. Nobody can do that.
He's doing whatever it takes to strategically take what is most advantageous and leave the rest. Which begs the question.
Can I
of course.
Mention one more point here, Vinamre, because we are talking about a navy here. उनकी जो नेवी है उसका जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है उसमें भी उनकी इंक्लूसिविटी आपको दिखाई देती है. उनके 2 नेवी चीफ ऑफ स्टाफ जो है, जो मतलब नेवल चीफ्स है, नेवी एडमिरल जिनको हम कहते हैं, वो 2 एक का नाम है दौलत खान, दूसरे का नाम है दरिया सारंग वेंट जी. अब वेंट जी ये हिंदू नाम दिखता है, लेकिन वो हिंदू नाम है नहीं, क्योंकि वो कोस्ट लाइन पर रहने वाले मुसलमान हैं. तो ये 2 शिवाजी महाराज ने अपॉइंट किए हुए उनके खुद के नेवी एडमिरल्स ये मुस्लिम हैं. सो ही इज़ एन इंक्लूसिव रूलर. He is not. That is why when somebody says, "Na, oh, anti-Muslim, is it Shivaji versus Aurangzeb? So Hinduism versus Islam." It is Hinduism versus Islamic fundamentalism.
Right.
And it is an inclusive Hinduism, जो सबको साथ लेके चल रहा है. और 2 मुसलमान कमांडर्स को नेवी चीफ अपॉइंट कर रहा है, क्योंकि उनकी एक्सपर्टीज की वजह से और उनके स्किल्स की वजह से he treats them as his top men.
Right, he's a meritocrat.
Absolutely, he yeah, correct. That's the right word. And he recruits the fisher folk from the western coast, the coolies in his navy. He tries to train them in because they are also, because they have only been plying their basic fishing boats. They don't know these big boats, and many of them, by the way, in the English records there's also this very interesting mention that Shivaji was trying to involve a lot of village men in the activities, and they were very hesitant because they were scared. He was first of all taking on these big powers, and they could not see what he was seeing,
right,
into the future. So they were wondering what's going on, why is he training us? But he trained them. He trained many of them understood, but many of them didn't understand what was going on, his vision. And then he brings in Kolis, he trains them, he brings in the Bhandaris. Now the Kolis and the Bhandaris are the original inhabitants of Mumbai.
Okay.
Yeah. And they are the coastal communities, the Marathi speaking Kolis and the Bhandaris. Okay. So they are the communities. He brings them into and they are all along the western coast. But I mentioned Mumbai because often there is this debate on, Mumbai ka original inhabitants kaun hai. So Baba Koli fishermen and Bhandaris.
These are the Bhiku Matre from Satya.
No, not at all.
No, he says Mumbai King Kong, it's Bhiku Matre. Anyway, yeah.
So that is it. But he, along with the Kolis and Bhandaris, he also includes Muslims from the coastline, because there is a considerable Muslim population on the coastline, or they also become part of Shivaji's army. And like I said, 2 of them become his navy chiefs.
Right. So he's doing all these campaigns. He's had a long, ever since he became king, that reign was fairly 6 or 7 years only, right? Before that,
he was crowned king in 1674. He died at the very young age of 50 in 1680.
But isn't that like a older age considering the rates of mortality in those days and whatnot?
Yes, absolutely. But there were also people who lived long at that time.
Right. So what ultimately led to the demise of the empire that he created? I'm not talking about the Maratha empire that after him. At least his brand of warfare or his own kingship. When did that start declining? What were some of the reasons for that? वो कैसे होना शुरू हुआ?
See, the Marathas succeeded a great deal after his death. After Shivaji Maharaj's death, I think Aurangzeb realized that he had to himself go to the Deccan and he wanted to wipe out the Marathas, because he already had seen what Shivaji had done and he saw it as an opportunity. Now he's dead, let me go there and finish them off. Otherwise, they are the big threat. तो वो यहाँ पे आता है 1681-82 में.
Just to dial you back, how did he die and like what were the, if you can elucidate that, what exactly happened?
See, he suffered 2 major illnesses.
Okay.
One was immediately after his return from Agra, which was a very stressful time, this time of imprisonment and the incredible escape and the more than 1,000-kilometer long journey, which is an escape, because the Mughal army is following you and you have to escape them.
Basically, you have to sprinting through
correct.
the country.
So that took a real toll. That whole episode took a real toll on him, and for about a month he was in bed and bedridden because of exhaustion and illness. And then he suffered another major illness. This was a decade later. Here the escape, we are talking about 1666 and 1667. And in 1676 again he suffers a major illness. That is because, see, the man is constantly on some campaign on the other. It's like living your life on a horse.
Yeah, he's on vigil all the time.
Exactly.
So that must have
and he's building a state. So it's difficult. And he has vastly superior opponents in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
And strength and technology and all of that. So he's constantly fighting against the odds. So it took a toll on him. So after these 2 major illnesses, his health anyway had taken a big hit. And in 1680, he developed a very high fever. He was bedridden for about 8-10 days or so, and he never recovered from it. And he passed away, because that was also the time when a small illness could result in death, right?
Correct,
Because medicine was not so well developed. We know that even at the start of the 20th century, people died like that. So here we are talking about the 17th century, and a very hectic and stress-filled life of state building and political statesmanship. So it was like that.
I know that there's a lot of treatment given to Chanakya, and जहाँ पे लोग पैरेलल्स ड्रॉ करते हैं चाणक्य से, आप बिजनेस के बारे में सीख सकते हो. बट देयर इज सो मच दैट पीपल कैन लर्न अबाउट से बिल्डिंग स्टार्टअप्स और बिल्डिंग बिजनेसेस फ्रॉम शिवाजी महाराज, बिकॉज he's again fight, like if you're a startup, you're fighting against big corporations trying to like get the parallels are like it's I'm surprised that like there are never lists like 10 things you can learn from Shivaji Maharaj about business, 5 things you can learn about courage, the sort of pop-ish knowledge that is disseminated on social media. There is almost none of that there.
That's surprising. But now that my book is there, I think the book
hopefully we can make a dent on that.
Will tell people about the lessons to be learned, whether these are lessons about vision, leadership, initiative, enterprise, strategic planning, administrative acumen, smartness, and above all, of course, how to look into the future and how to shape that future with the help of sheer will, resilience, and highly intelligent planning. So all the lessons are there in his life. If people were to take a look at my book, I have listed out in detail how he went about doing things.
Correct.
Which in itself carries so many lessons, like you said.
अब मैं एक पुराना उनका इंसिडेंट दोबारा बचपन वाले में जाऊँगा, वेयर हम पहले इस बारे में बात नहीं कर पाए, जहाँ जो भी लोग इनफैक्ट एम्पायर के, जब और भी लोग थे मुगल एम्पायर के या जो उनके आसपास के कंटेम्प्रेरीज थे, वो लोग भी डरते थे ऐसी टेरिटरी में जाने के लिए जहाँ पे रेवाइन्स थे बहुत सारे, जहाँ पे inaccessible territory थी. But he was considered a master of that he would actively walk into danger.
Absolutely.
And so he was, एक तो ये होता है ना कि आप राजमहल में पैदा हुए, आपने राजमहल ही देखा, आप वहीं से ही राज कर रहे हो. एक होता है कि आपने अपना बहुत सारा यूथ जंगलों में, वादियों में ऐसे बिठाया है, उन्हें ट्रैवर्स करते हुए. तो मुझे वो पैरेलल बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग लगा कि यहाँ से मिलिट्री स्ट्रैटेजी ऑफ कोर्स आएगी, बिकॉज आपकी स्पेशल अवेयरनेस बहुत अच्छी है.
यस नहीं, दैट इज व्हाई हिज अर्ली इयर्स इन द माउंटेन्स आर एक्सट्रीमली इम्पॉर्टेंट, क्योंकि ही मिंगल्स अमंग द पीपल. वो मिक्स हो जाते हैं. जो हिल्स के जो लोग हैं, माउंटेन्स के जो लोग हैं, उनकी ग्रीवेंसेस क्या है, उनकी चिंताएं क्या है, ये टेरेन कैसा है, यहाँ पे क्या चलेगा, क्या नहीं चलेगा, लोगों को क्या चाहिए, क्या यहाँ क्या गलतियाँ हो रही है, यहाँ कौन सी प्रशासकीय सुधारणा लाई जा सकती है, यहाँ पे क्या राज्य चलाने में कौन सा अन्याय हो रहा है, वो अन्याय का परिमार्जन हम किस तरह से कर सकते हैं, वो अन्याय किस तरह से दूर कर सकते हैं, और किस प्रकार का राज्य यहाँ ठीक से चल सकता है और चलना चाहिए लोगों के हित में. तो उसका विचार, सर्वांगीण विचार एक आपको शिवाजी महाराज के नेतृत्व में दिखाई देता है, और वो he works in that direction, relentlessly works in that direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I will take your suggestion that we should talk about his lessons, lessons from
especially
Shivaji
his expansion, his looking at territories, like people look at real estate groups look at acquiring more real estate. It is a very logical way of enhancing your kingship.
But where is very different, where he cannot really be compared to the people you just mentioned, is that he is a liberator in that sense.
Okay.
Because he is not just gaining
simply for profit
stuff for himself.
Yeah.
He is doing things for the betterment of the people, and which is there on his royal seal, that this royal seal of Shivaji shines for the betterment of humankind.
That's what it says.
That's what it says. At the age of 16, he creates that seal. So his ideas are very clear. His political enterprise is not an enterprise directed at self gain, because if it were, then we would not be talking about him, and he would not be the kind of legend that he is.
Correct.
In India. But he is big precisely because he worked for the people, and without any hope of self-aggrandizement.
You have lived in Maharashtra all your life?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
So would you say?
And I lived for a very small amount of time, more than a year, of course, in the Jagir that once belonged to Shivaji Raje, that is Bangalore.
Interesting. So I have a question about this spirit of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. That is it still in the hearts and minds of modern day Marathi people? When he is mentioned, what are people usually? What part of him are they trying to sort of call upon? You know, I'm sure you cannot speak for the lived experience of every Marathi because there are so many.
Yeah.
But why is he still at the, or is he at the heart of spiritual activities, or could he be called the spiritual father of this state? Could we make those claims? And if yes, what is the extent to that? Because every state or every region has some kind of a figure attached to it, right? You know, and the two words Maratha pride या हम मराठा हैं उस पे गर्व होना.
Right.
How much of that stems from his legacy?
A great deal stems from his legacy, and actually he represents the core of the Maharashtrian identity.
Which is?
And the Maharashtrian identity derives itself from the humanistic values of the Bhakti saint poets. And Shivaji's philosophy is a deeply humanistic philosophy which has its basis in the philosophy of the Bhakti saint poets.
अगर उन पर वो क्या होती है exactly philosophy?
वो अगर मैं एक दो शब्दों में कहूँ तो जो ज्ञानेश्वर का एक वाक्य है कि हे विश्वची माझे घर, द एंटायर वर्ल्ड इज माई होम माई फैमिली. बाय घर आई मीन माई होम माई फैमिली. सो इट is the same idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam that we've had civilizationally and culturally for a long time. So that is at the core of the human philosophy, and I think that is why. And he also ensured the survival of what is known as Maharashtra Dharma. अभी महाराष्ट्र धर्म का अर्थ यही है कि ज्ञानेश्वर से दुरितांचे तिमिर जाओ विश्व स्वधर में सूर्य पाहो जे जो वांछिल तो ते लाहो. That is, whatever each one of us desires, may he get that. And Duritanse Timir Zao means people who are suffering, may their suffering vanish. And may happiness spread across all of humankind and also across all other species. So that is the philosophy that Shivaji brings to life and gives it a certain vibrancy by establishing a state based on those values. That is why he is so critical. And that is why he defines Maharashtrian identity. Even more so, I would say, than the Bhakti poet saints, because the Bhakti poet saints were around when Islamic rule was around. And there was a lot of oppression happening also from many of the Islamic rulers. Now here I must make exceptions, of course. One of the Adil Shahs of Bijapur, in the 16th century, Bijapur was a fairly liberal state. The Adil Shah was, one of the Adil Shahs was a worshipper of Ganpati. Like Dara Shikoh was later a scholar of the Upanishads and Veds. But in the 17th century, by the time Shivaji is born, even the Adil Shahi state has turned fanatical and intolerant. और उनके written orders है जो I have mentioned in my book कि किसी भी हिंदू को और मराठों को एक पद के ऊपर का पद मत दीजिए. Keep them up to a point and don't give them positions of authority beyond a certain point.
They should be low-level administrators.
So there is an inherent injustice in that system. And Shivaji corrects that system and establishes the Maratha state on the basis of the saints' values. So earlier the values were there, but the state represented something else. The state could ride roughshod over those values. Shivaji stops that and deeply enshrines, establishes those values. That is why he defines the Maharashtrian identity. But unfortunately, because he's such a big, iconic and the defining figure in Maharashtra's life, you will also find every political party trying to reclaim him as their own.
Correct.
And doing all kinds of things in his name that he would never have sanctioned and he would never have approved.
Right. But it's a common political strategy to do so, right? Anyone who's trying to stake claim to a territory, वो ये करते हैं, वो किसी ancestral lineage को इशारा करते हैं कि हमारी है.
Absolutely.
And that, it's like you stake claims on the past to make your present future present stronger.
बिल्कुल. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है, मेरा ये पर्सनल ओपिनियन ये है कि मराठी समाज ने भी और वो विचार करना शुरू अब हो गया है कि सिर्फ शिवाजी महाराज का जय जयकार करने वाले लोग सही मायने में उनके विचारों का पालन कर रहे हैं या नहीं, इसका भी हमें अभी आकलन मतलब थोड़ा एग्जामिनेशन करना होगा। जो सामान्य मराठी आदमी है महाराष्ट्र में रहने वाला, उसको भी ये सोचना होगा, क्योंकि हर पक्ष तो यही बोलता है और वो शिवाजी महाराज की जय बोलते हैं और करते कुछ और हैं अपने खासगी और राजनीतिक जीवन में। तो ये शिवाजी महाराज की जय तो बोलना ही है, क्योंकि ही इज द कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी ऑफ महाराष्ट्र एंड आई perfectly understand that sentiment.
Right.
But mere symbolism, is that enough? Should we not go beyond that symbolism? कोई आदमी रोज शिवाजी महाराज की जय नहीं बोल रहा होगा, लेकिन वो शिवाजी को जो अभिप्रेत था वो काम कर रहा होगा, तो वो काम वो काम कर रहा है, वो शिवाजी का सही मायने से फायने में फॉलोअर है। तो वो ये हमको अभी जो मराठी समाज को काफ़ी धक्का लगा है, जैसे भारत में सभी समाजों को लगा है। मैं मराठी समाज की इसीलिए बात कर रहे हैं क्योंकि शिवाजी महाराज का नाम हमेशा मराठी राजकीय विश्व में रोज़ लिया जाता है। इसलिए मैं बात कर रहा हूँ कि अभी एक समाज की दृष्टि से भी सोचने का वक्त आ गया है कि हम सिर्फ जो स्लोगन्स बोल रहे हैं उनको शिवाजी के भक्त समझे, या फिर जो शिवाजी को जो अभिप्रेत था वो काम कर रहे हैं उनको शिवाजी के सक्सेसर समझे। अभी आई थिंक इस पे चर्चा होना महाराष्ट्र में ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि महात्मा फुले ने शिवाजी पर पोवाड़ा लिखकर उनका गौरव किया। पोवाड़ा इज़ अ बैलेड।
ओके।
पोवाड़ा लिखकर उनका गौरव किया। लोकमान्य तिलक ने शिव जयंती और शिवाजी जयंती लेकर उनका मैसेज और भी प्रसारित किया। उसके बाद आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस द पॉलिटिशियंस टुक ओवर एंड नाउ व्हाट दे हैव रिड्यूस्ड हिम टू and the state too is something we need to examine. And I'm not taking a broad brush approach and condemning everybody. There may be people who may be doing good work, but I think we need to look at the symbolical aspect कि हम कितनी दिन इनको इस तरह से अलाउ करेंगे कि हाँ नहीं अरे. So I think we need to take a closer and more examined approach to things.
Marathi people shouldn't allow his legacy to be tarnished and exploited by people who want to do that.
And I am not talking only about legacy. I am talking about legacy, of course, but I am talking also about how to look at his life. Because they have also distorted how we are looking at his life, right? Yeah. So that's why I am saying this whole mere symbolism, and symbolism, like I said, is important. So it is important for somebody to say Shivaji Maharaj ki jai and to demonstrate pride in that. But what we have to examine is whether that pride is genuine and whether people are doing the right things or not.
Or because that is what matters. As a political tool.
As a political tool. Yeah. So I think that is important. And I think we better have a discussion on his life. The more we discuss it, the better it will be. And not just for Maharashtra, for all of India.
Right.
Because, increasingly, even in the freedom movement, it happened that people, popularized the Shivaji icon. In Punjab, Lala Lajpat Rai wrote a book on Urdu on Shivaji Maharaj. In Bengal, Rabindranath Tagore wrote a famous poem on Shivaji Maharaj. So people across the subcontinent have held him up as a king. But those were great people.
Yeah.
I think we need to now relook at what people and politicians, especially in this era, are doing.
Your training in journalism, you work at TOI as the resident deputy editor. I hope I didn't get that wrong. Is it deputy resident editor?
Deputy resident
editor. Yeah. How much of that helped? Because you're very articulate. It seems like the words of Shivaji and his life you are embodying them. It seems like all of these facts have been in you for years and now they're just coming out, and the book is one example and this conversation is another one. How much of that helped you cut the wheat through the chaff and understand what is essential to writing this book and what is something that, is best ignored or not? Like, how did you decide to... Because the book is a chronology. It leads you from the time that he was born till the end of his life, and then in the middle there are we can ignore that. Till in the middle there are sort of extrapolations on what is happening with all the major characters that are also playing a role in this grand state building exercise. Right. Either they're against it or they're for it or they're merely just red herrings.
Right.
So
how much of your training on your day job helped you like sort of?
I think that being a journalist has helped me greatly with my writing. इसका कारण ये है कि Vinamre, you know that this is my 5th book. This is not my first book.
Correct.
This is the 5th book I have written. And being a journalist has helped a lot, क्योंकि होता क्या है जब आप पत्रकारिता करते हो और जर्नलिस्ट का काम करते हो तो आपका हमेशा ये दृष्टिकोण होता है कि आप जो लिख रहे हो वो हर प्रकार के लोगों को समझ में आना चाहिए. आप सिर्फ आपके आइवरी टावर के लोगों के लिए नहीं लिख रहे हो और आपके क्लिक के लिए नहीं लिख रहे हो. तो काफ़ी एकेडमिक लोग.
Shout out to Press Club of India, guys.
हाँ नहीं, और नॉट जस्ट द प्रेस क्लब ऑफ इंडिया गाइज, बट क्या होता है काफ़ी एकेडमिक लोगों का ऐसे हो जाता है, एकेडमिक हिस्टोरियंस का, कि क्या है वो स्कॉलरशिप तो करते हैं लेकिन वो जो लिखते हैं ना वो कभी कभी उनको भी समझ में नहीं आता है कि क्या लिखा हुआ है, और उनके पीयर्स को भी समझ में नहीं आता है, और उनको काफ़ी उनमें से काफ़ी लोग ऐसे हैं जिनको अभिमान है कि अरे किसी को भी समझ में नहीं आया मैंने क्या लिखा. अब ये मुझे उसका अभिमान होना ठीक नहीं लगता. और वो दृष्टिकोण मुझे पत्रकारिता देती है कि मैं अगर कुछ लिखता हूँ तो वो सामान्य से सामान्य आदमी को सही तरह से समझ में आना चाहिए, और वो किसी को इम्प्रेस करने के लिए लिखने से ज़्यादा अच्छा है. वो क्लैरिटी ऑफ थॉट, क्लैरिटी ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन and accuracy of expression, of course, along with elegance of language and elegance of structure
but
and content.
Elegance is secondary to simplicity and accessibility.
I would say they go hand in hand.
Really?
They would go hand in hand. But clarity is extremely important, I would say. Because see, ultimately you're communicating with the reader. And if you're communicating, I think it is important to communicate clearly. And that is what journalism has taught me. As a journalist, I have learned on the job. I've been a journalist now for 25 years. So every day of my life I have kept this thing in mind, and this motto I've kept in mind while writing every paragraph of all my books, that this is for every reader. It may be a PhD reader, an academic historian, a genius, intellectual genius must know what I'm saying, and a school boy or school girl must know what I'm saying, without compromising on the depth and quality of the writing. Now, whether to what extent I have succeeded in doing that, only the reader can tell. I cannot make claims for myself. But this is my aim. And that is an aim that journalism has helped me to define well and to approach.
Correct. I do think that the book has retained its depth while still being accessible, because honestly, just the mentions of itne chote incidences that are necessary to the idea of understanding Shivaji, to everywhere from just his qualitative descriptions, I'm not being paid to say this, by the way, are wonderful, right? Which is why we're able to read through it pretty quickly. Because otherwise, it's I think it's also helpful that the approach you took in the book is not just going from birth, teens, death, but you also add in other narratives. Right? There's a big voice and small voice happening where you sort of get respite from the story to other incidents that are just happening at the same time, and they're back in the story again, right?
Correct. See, ultimately we are all storytellers.
Right.
When you are doing your YouTube thing, which is so popular, you're telling a story. Similarly, I am a writer, so I have to tell a story. And one has to remember that all the time when one is writing, that you're a story. You're a storyteller. And you may make divergences. But again, those divergences also are an essential part of that story.
Right.
It does not take away from the story. It must add to that story.
Correct.
And accessibility is the right word you use. Accessibility is a critical factor that one has to keep in mind. I try and keep it in mind all the time.
Wonderful. So, वैभव जी, बहुत अच्छा लगा आपसे बात करके. I did not expect कि हम इतने डेप्थ में शिवाजी की, छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज की लाइफ के बारे में जान पाएंगे. The fact that we've been on for so long is a testament to not only the greatness of your book, but also just how many years this took. Because if this was just like a weekend project, right? You'd probably be looking at your cliff notes and whatnot. कि I don't have, but मतलब मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूँ, ये compliment है. आप एकदम पे वो facts बता पा रहे हो ना, as if like there is so much more to say. It seems to me that this issue is really personal to you, and that you really enjoyed writing this book.
Yeah, I certainly enjoyed writing this book. I always wanted to write it because I felt that the scholarship on Shivaji is inadequate. Correct. And a lot of it, like I earlier said, is outdated. So new scholarship was necessary, and scholarship that reaches everybody.
Right.
So that is important.
Wonderful. So people can get the book on Amazon, on the Juggernaut website, anywhere else? Any
In
other
all
touch points?
bookstores.
In all bookstores.
Across the country.
Totally forgot physical bookstores. Just so used to
they
Kindles
still exist and may they prosper.
May they prosper. Actually, yeah. Sometimes I do miss physical books. I've just switched over the Kindle to the Kindle because it's easier to do the highlights and then send them over via email. So then it just makes it better to later compile that information.
Yeah, but if you don't want to go to a bookstore, of course you can.
Obviously, do the Kindle stuff. Great. So also people can follow your Twitter handle at
yes.
What is it called?
I think Vaibhav P21. It's at Twitter.
Any other social media handles?
I've got my what do you call it? The Instagram handle.
Okay.
And I'm trying to talk about certain subjects on YouTube as well.
Okay.
So this is something I'm just starting out on, and it's about history and politics are the two areas that I'm focusing on.
Interesting.
In order to take Indian history and world history to the viewers, listeners, and I hope to do more in that regard because the visual medium is an important medium. The audio medium is an important medium.
Correct.
So I'm going to do that. Yeah.
Wonderful. So obviously you can buy the book Shivaji by Vaibhav Purandare, and it was great having you on Dostcast.
Thank you, Vinamre. Thank you for inviting me on your very popular Dostcast. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you also to Divya for hooking this up. She was wonderful. So glad that we got to do this. बाकी आप सभी लोग show देख सकते हैं. You can also listen to us on audio platforms. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next Tuesday or Friday whenever the next Dostcast releases. Bye bye. Take care.